15 years into our marriage, Meng Ye had been keeping a spoiled young woman in a hidden residence. She eventually came to me, cradling her belly, demanding a title. You are old, with one foot already in the grave, and you have no son to see you off. By what right do you still occupy the position of the primary wife? I looked at her with genuine interest, then glanced at Meng Ye standing behind her. You tell her. By what right? He didn't dare speak. He knew the truth. I am the daughter of a general's house. If we were truly to turn against each other, even his little darling would have to shut her mouth and weep in silence. Chapter 1. Every month, on the day of the full moon, I accompanied my mother-in-law to Hugo Temple to pray for blessings. As she grew older, she had many things she couldn't let go of, entrusting them all to the gods and ancestors. From the scorching midday sun until sunset, I, having nothing left to regret and nothing more to pray for, would slip away to the back gardens to watch the clouds and listen to the wind. In the secluded courtyard where I often brewed tea, I happened upon an interesting young lady. She was holding a bowl of bird's nest soup served by a maid. Her eyes crinkled into crescents as she giggled. Him! Oh, he's always worrying over nothing. Hugo Temple is so large. Surely he didn't think he'd let me and his son starve. As she spoke, she absent-mindedly stroked her belly, which didn't yet show. Her face was radiant with the tenderness and joy of a first-time mother. Realizing I was watching, she nodded shyly, then asked casually, Madam, how old are your children? Do they look like the one in my womb? The kind that makes a mother lose sleep out of worry? Among the noble ladies of the capital, who didn't know that I, Su Jinhua, was barren, those who dared to poke at that wound to my face could be counted on one hand. Yet her gaze was calm and sincere, waiting for my answer. I curled my lips into a polite smile. My fortune is thin. I have never borne a child. She sighed, a look of pity crossing her face. What a shame. Being a mother is such a blessing. Seeing me smile faintly without responding, she continued, Praying for a child at Hugo Temple is very effective. If a husband and wife hang a prayer ribbon together, they are bound to be granted their wish. I am here to offer thanks after my wish was fulfilled. You should try it, madam. My heart tightened as I looked at her deeply. Or I couldn't conceive, and my husband claimed he didn't want children. If he had, taking a few concubines wouldn't have been difficult. Her smile faltered slightly, turning strained. Surely, the master loves you very much. Yes, I replied. Meng Ye used to love me very much. In the 3rd year of our marriage, when the imperial physician confirmed I had no affinity for children, I had tentatively suggested moving to the ancestral hall to live in seclusion. Meng Ye had stormed into the room like a madman, his eyes bloodshot. He knelt before me and swore, I only want Jinhua. Even if I end my line with no heirs, I will have no other. If I ever have a second heart, may I not die a natural death. I had thought myself enlightened all these years, never letting the lack of children burden me, and he had kept his promise. His back courtyard remained empty. As half our lives passed us by, it was almost laughable to be stabbed in the heart with the topic of children by a mere slip of a girl. As I helped my mother-in-law down the mountain, that girl happened to be boarding a carriage. It was a grand, luxurious carriage, no less opulent than those from the Grand Preceptor's manor. The servants attending her were meticulous, echoing the master's orders with every word. She was clearly a woman cherished by her husband, but it was a small ornament hanging from the corner of the carriage that caught my eye. It was a peace amulet my mother-in-law had prayed for last month, insisting Meng Ye keep it on him. He had told her he didn't know where he'd misplaced it. My mother-in-law saw it too. She quickly moved to stand in front of me. Jinhua, Mother is a bit tired. Could you help me over there to rest for a moment?" I looked away, pretending not to see the girl's boastful display. At middle age, one's dignity is paramount. The young girl didn't understand that, but as the matriarch of a household, I had to. When Meng Ye returned that evening, I was holding a book on military strategy. The 36 stratagems? To win without blood, to attack the heart is supreme? Why are you reading military texts? He took the book from my hand and grasped my fingers. Were you tired today? Did you miss me? I stared at him, searching for a single flaw in that face the years had treated so kindly. There was none. He had navigated the bureaucracy for over a decade. He was no longer the youth who wore his heart on his sleeve. In his affectionate eyes was my reflection, and nothing else. Only a small stain on the wide sleeve of his green robe betrayed the secret. While he wasn't looking, I rubbed it between my fingers and sniffed. Crab roe. That girl had once smiled brightly at her maid. The master hates the smell of crab, but since I love it, he promised he'd peel a bowl of fat crab meat for me with his own hands when he returns to the manor today. So, returning this late? He had been peeling crabs for her? I used to love crab too. Before I married Meng Ye, my father and brothers would roll up their sleeves to peel a whole bowl for me. Later, Meng Ye said he couldn't stand the fishy smell. Even from a distance, it made his stomach churn. For his sake, I never ate crab again. To think that while I was compromising for love, he had learned to embrace someone else's preferences. Actually, I once had that kind of love. Back then, before I was his wife, I had casually mentioned that the green bean cakes from my maternal grandfather's house were soft and fragrant, but it was a pity they were so far away. He had ridden a horse for 4 days and nights without rest to bring them to me. I was a daughter pampered by my family, never lacking affection, yet I was moved by that youth's sincere, fiery devotion. Years had passed, and the way Meng Ye loved someone hadn't changed at all. It was just that the recipient was no longer me. My throat felt tight, my eyes stinging. It was all shattered. His hand, stroking my hair, paused. "What's wrong?" I smiled. "That year, the green bean cakes you carried in your coat. They were crushed by the jolting of the horse. Meng Ye, tell me, if we had a child, would we be more complete?" His eyes met mine, then guiltily darted away. "You're overthinking. If you want green bean cakes, I'll have someone buy them for you tomorrow." The times had changed. I hadn't eaten green bean cakes in years. Only a girl who hadn't seen the world would be happy over a morsel of food. I, however, would not bother looking for traces of love in his negligence. He thought I didn't know. Half an hour ago, he had gone to his mother's courtyard. He wanted to give that woman and her unborn child a legitimate status. His mother had replied with only 4 words: "Discard the mother, keep the child." "Master, there is urgent business at the library," a servant called. Meng Ye looked at me indifferently. "Rest early, Jinhua. I'll be back soon." He wouldn't be back. That was the woman's threat to me. I turned and called for Lian Chung, the guard my family had provided. A man trained for military reconnaissance could find anything if he wished. "Track the master's recent movements. Don't let yourself be seen and don't alert the target." He looked at me in shock. Meng Ye and I had been married for 15 years, and we had known each other for 30. I could believe my father and brothers would commit treason before I believed Meng Ye would betray me. And that was why, when the person closest to me stabbed me in the back, it hurt all the more. "There's a spare carriage at the back of the library. Follow it, and it will be easy to find him." Once I accepted reality and let go of my feelings, my mind became terrifyingly clear. Meng Ye spent every day in the library. How could he hide a woman right under my nose? He was likely slipping out from there. My intuition was correct. Within days, information on the girl he kept in the West City, even her ancestry for 3 generations, was laid out on my table. Her name was Wen Yunyang, the daughter of a secondary wife of my brother's former lieutenant. She was in the bloom of her youth. While riding in the outskirts of the city, she had fallen into the arms of Master Meng. As a secondary daughter who suffered under a harsh primary wife, she had been looking for a way out. Meng Ye pitied her. He pitied her enough to take her to bed and buy her a 3-room manor. She had more maids and servants than I did. A young girl's love is arrogant and domineering. She was always desperate to prove she was more important than the aging wife. So, on my birthday, she had a high fever. And on the anniversary of my father's and brother's deaths, she fell into the water. Whenever I hosted a banquet, her house caught fire. Time and again, she forced Meng Ye to choose betrayal. She even knew I had a southern pearl hairpin gifted by the Empress. She pestered Meng Ye for a pair of southern pearl earrings. Even though it wasn't the season for pearls and southern pearls were reserved for the palace, the upright grand preceptor crossed the line, spending 1,000 gold to find 2 massive pearls for her. He spent 3 months personally setting them into earrings as a birthday gift for Wen Yunyang. Wen Yunyang had bragged to her own elder sister that an old woman didn't deserve such precious things. Only someone in their prime could bring out their beauty. Step by step, she trampled over me. Step by step. She proved her love always came first, and Meng Ye was the one who blatantly indulged her. Though I had anticipated that the truth would be cruel and disgusting once a heart changed, I still felt the sting. My youthful romance had turned into a mouthful of needles and swords. But I am Su Jinhua. I have never been one to suffer a loss quietly. If you give me a needle, I will return a blade. So what if they were Eastern pearls? I had bigger ones, but he shouldn't have made me pick up someone else's trash. Last year, on my birthday, Meng Ye had pestered me about jewelry styles. I gave in and described the current trends. He rubbed his nose sheepishly, muttering that he just wanted to make a pair of earrings for me. I stayed up with him, explaining the craftsmanship in detail. He listened intently, telling me to wait for his surprise. On my birthday, he gave me a pair of jade bracelets. When I asked about the earrings, his face stiffened. He claimed his skill wasn't good enough, and he didn't want to embarrass himself. He gave his heart to someone else and left me with an afterthought. Those bracelets were probably only given to me because the girl gave him permission. I wore them every day, thinking they represented his love, when they were actually a humiliation. Long before that, he had taken her on a business trip to Jiangnan for 6 months. During those 6 months, he took her boating on the Qinhuai River, carried her up Mount Huang, and held her through a night on the Yangtze. Every place I had excitedly taken him, he revisited with his blossoming new love. The old woman who used to make osmanthus cakes for us, or her eyes now clouded with age, had congratulated him, thinking his wish had finally come true, and he had a daughter who looked like his wife. The girl had bristled. "I am not her daughter. That old woman is a jinx. How could she have such luck?" And what did Meng Ye do? He had laughed and tapped her nose. "You little jealous thing. Why mention other people's pain? Just give me a few more children." So I was other people. My pain was unnecessary. His words were a slap that shattered my girlhood dreams. Wen Yunyang, receiving such blatant and intense love, told her servants, "That old woman is withered. How can she compete with me?" Once I give birth to the eldest son of the Grand Preceptor's manor, she'll have to swallow her pride and serve me. She'll even have to raise my son well. The girl tied a prayer charm for her child around the dog's neck, asking Meng Ye mockingly, "What about the old woman in the manor?" Meng Ye had paused, his voice light. "She doesn't matter. In the flow of time, we've become a relationship not worth mentioning. Our paths have diverged." I had no regrets. What I hated was that Meng Ye had trampled on my feelings. I hated that they had trampled on my child. The abbot had said clearly, the prayer charm must not leave the parents for it to secure a peaceful reincarnation for a child who died young. Yet he allowed someone to tie it to a dog for amusement. A father is supposed to plan for his child's future, even across lifetimes. I could only conclude that Meng Ye was unworthy of being my child's father. On a night of heavy rain, I sat on the porch, letting the rain soak half my body. The cold and the heartache felt like they would tear me apart. Meanwhile, my so-called husband was in another courtyard, drinking tea with his girl and planning their future. He held her tenderly and said, "Mother said that if it truly comes to a confrontation, the Meng family cannot end this line. We must be ruthless, discard the mother and keep the child. The one to be discarded is the primary wife. The one to be kept is our beloved son." As I listened to Lian Cheng repeat those words, my heart felt squeezed, suffocating. I should have realized. 15 years had passed. Hearts change. The Meng family had long been burdened by the debt of gratitude they owed the Su family. They were only restrained by fear of public opinion. But now that a biological son was in sight, how could they let go? And Meng Ye, he was no longer the bright youth who rode 1,000 miles for a plate of cakes. He couldn't let go of the wealth and status my family brought him. He couldn't stand the mockery of having no heirs. He craved the young body and the sense of achievement that came from being adored. He wanted it all. He was far too greedy. I may have been worn down by the back courtyard, losing my sharp edges, but I was not one to swallow tears for the sake of a false completeness. I smashed those jade bracelets in the pouring rain. The love was broken, but it wasn't my fault. The one who deserved to die wasn't me. The traitor is the one who should swallow 1,000 needles. At dawn, Meng Ye returned, smelling of the cold. On his neck were clear marks of affection left by that girl. I pointed at the disgusting red marks. The person outside is quite bold. She must not know the temperament of the Su family. One can die in the street without knowing why. Meng Ye saw the shattered bracelets, his brow twitching. I had an allergic reaction to peanuts. As for the bracelets, how did they break? I smiled thinly. Jade is brittle. It's not as durable as pearls. Speaking of which, I find I prefer pearls after all. His gaze deepened, searching my face for an answer. I didn't flinch. I simply handed him the bowl of medicine his mother drank daily. Consort Shu is currently pregnant and needs the rare herbs herself. I can't ask for more. Please take this to your mother. After all, 1,000 days of care can't make up for one moment of resentment. Meng Ye stared at me for a long time before taking the bowl. You've always been the most capable when it comes to serving mother. Fine, since you've asked, I'll go. As his tall figure walked out the door, I added coolly, sincere filial piety has always been for one's own sake. For 15 years, I gave my all because I never considered you an outsider. You shouldn't forget that. Meng Ye turned back in surprise, but I was just holding my teacup, not looking at him. He went to his mother's courtyard with a head full of questions for another hour of plotting. If he knew that the medicine he carried day and night was exactly what would end his mother's life, would he still be able to smile? Lian Cheng appeared in the shadows. I couldn't even tell where he was standing. That little girl outside is quite arrogant. She's sent so many threats. Shouldn't I return the favor? I recall that Lieutenant Wen has a fiery temper and hates scandals. His daughter has brought such shame to him. Shouldn't he handle it? A breeze rustled the trees. Lian Cheng was gone. That night, warned by his mother, Meng Ye grew wary of me. He feared the girl he'd hidden would be exposed and harmed by me, so he didn't dare go to the West City. But the girl was far too impatient. She sent messenger after messenger. Meng Ye was restless, losing focus even while writing. I set down my brush. If you have business, you may leave. Being half-hearted will only result in losing everything. His face paled. No, I set aside today specifically to be with you. Yet less than half an hour later, citing an urgent matter, he left the manor, tossing aside the scriptures he was supposed to be copying for his son. As he rushed out, and I couldn't help but call out one last warning. It's raining and the roads are slick. Watch your step. At our age, doing everything perfectly is hard enough. If you take a heavy fall, everything will be lost. His silhouette stiffened, but he left anyway. I withdrew my gaze, my voice cold as ice. I hope you won't do something stupid for the sake of love. Meng Ye didn't do anything stupid, but his little girl was intercepted by her own primary mother and sisters in the middle of the street. They forced her to her knees and slapped her repeatedly. The onlookers' insults stripped away every bit of her dignity. Like mother, like daughter, both just bed-climbing sluts. Too bad you don't have your mother's luck. Madame Wen was generous enough to let her be a concubine. But you're just a mistress acting high and mighty in the streets. If you hadn't picked a fight with the secretary's daughter, who would have known this lavish villa housed a fox spirit? The Wen family is a military house. How did they raise such a creature? In a common household, you'd have been hanged already to preserve the family honor. The girl who had planned to trap me in my own back courtyard probably never expected to be torn apart by the teeth of societal convention herself. She was speechless, biting her lip as tears streamed down her face, looking piteously toward Meng Ye in the crowd. Meng Ye clenched his fists but didn't dare risk his career and the Meng family's reputation to save his beauty. Instead, he sent a frantic plea to the flamboyant Lord Huo Ling. Those insults and slaps landed on the girl's face, but it was Meng Ye's eyes that turned red. By the time Lord Huo arrived to rescue her, the fresh, arrogant face was completely distorted. Meng Ye, heartbroken, waited in the small courtyard with a physician. I sat in a tea house nearby, counting the slaps. When they reached 100, I added 20 more for good measure. Only then did I feel a sense of relief. This old woman didn't have much else, but I had plenty of schemes and a cold heart. The Wen family honor was upheld. Wen Yunyang was given a choice: hang herself or sever ties. She chose the latter. With a face swollen like a pig's head and the mocking whispers of the public, she could only play dead and be carried back to her villa. From then on, everything she was proud of was branded as theft and meanness. And she didn't yet know that those poison slaps had permanently ruined her face. Madame Wen was a straightforward woman. Knowing the shame was already done, she chose to sacrifice the small to protect the great. The marriages of her other daughters and the careers of the Wen men were secured through those slaps. When Meng Ye returned to the manor, looking like he'd lost his soul, I poured him tea and chatted casually. To be so young and not learn how to be a person, but to be a mistress instead. Now she's lost both her dignity and her future. I'm afraid even a legitimate concubine is cleaner than she is. Logically, Huo Ling doesn't like that type. How could he have his eye on her? Anyone with eyes can see that such shameless behavior comes from poor upbringing. To think he spent 3 years with her in West City. It seems he's blind. He couldn't take it anymore and slammed his teacup down. Jinhua, you were never a woman of many words. Why are you acting like a common gossip, judging others right and wrong? I grabbed his hand. When he saw the blood stain on his sleeve, his pupils contracted and he instinctively tried to pull away. I held on tight, cleaning it for him while smiling, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I just feel bad for the wife of that household, having a pile of filth thrown in her face. That kind of disgust is enough to last a lifetime. Monk Ye trembled. I suddenly looked him straight in the eye. You wouldn't let me suffer such disgust, would you? After all, I have never been a kind person. He forced a smile. Of course not. Our relationship cannot be compared to others. It's time for mother's medicine. I'll go now. He fled. I poured the tea he had sipped onto the floor. Our relationship was long past saving. She was the one he loved now. That girl was annoying. But the traitor who stole from his own house was the one who truly deserved death. Meng Ye didn't leave the manor for days. The girl used expensive medicines, but they couldn't save her once beautiful face. Meng Ye was frantic. Finally, while I was busy praying for my child, he snuck out to visit her. In a private room at Qixiang Pavilion, the girl wore a veil, weeping and clinging to Meng Ye. Didn't you say I was soft and fragrant, that you'd be happy to die in my arms? Why didn't you come for days? Are you disgusted by the scars on my face? Meng Ye coaxed her. Nonsense! Even with scars, you are my irreplaceable treasure. The girl wrapped her arms around his neck. Sleeping next to that old woman? Doesn't it make you uncomfortable? Don't you miss me? Do you know how much I missed you? Silly girl. My heart only has room for you and our child. This is just a temporary tactic. You must endure a little longer. She is a tigress from a military family. I have to be careful not to fall into her trap. He comforted her tenderly, tearing a roast duck into small pieces and feeding her. The girl cheered up. Then you aren't allowed to give yourself to that tigress. You belong only to me. Look at me. Don't I still look good in these southern pearl earrings? People say these pearls are bigger and brighter than eyes. Next time we make love, I'll let you use your tongue to take them out for me. Meng Ye's hand, tearing the duck, froze. He pulled her into his arms, leaning down to bite her lips. But as he looked up, he saw me standing at the door, smiling. He was so terrified he turned rigid, staring at my smiling face with a look of pure panic. The girl, still pouting, clung to him. You're so silly. It's embarrassing here. Don't blame me if I bite you without warning, just like I did on the boat. If that old woman found out... Realizing Meng Ye was shaking, she opened her eyes and followed his gaze. Her face went pale as she hid behind him. She had painted floral patterns over her scars, vivid butterflies blooming on her cheeks, adding a touch of seductive charm. A move like that was enough to make any noble matriarch blush. No wonder Meng Ye couldn't let go. I walked closer as Meng Ye trembled. I opened my palm. My southern pearls, you gave them to her. Can you return them to me today? My voice was light. It was almost airy, but Meng Ye's pupils contracted. He shielded Wen Yunyang and stammered, Jinhua, why are you here? Have you eaten? Do you want anything? The girl bit her lip, clutching Meng Ye's sleeve, terrified I would see their relationship, as if it wasn't already obvious. I asked again, return them to me. Before Meng Ye could speak, Wen Yunyang knelt before me, sobbing. It's all my fault. Don't blame the master. I insisted on having southern pearl earrings for my birthday. I forced him to spend thousands of gold. If I had known they were your treasures, I would have returned them long ago. Good. She pretended to reach for her earrings, but I moved faster. I grabbed the 2 massive pearls and yanked them hard. Rip. I pressed a blood-stained finger to her lips as she gasped in pain. Then the princess and the county mistress are having tea next door. If they find out the grand preceptor skipped his lessons for the crown prince to play with a mistress whom the whole city despises, both the Meng family and your master are finished. The girl turned white. Meng Ye, though angry, stayed silent. I curled my lips, but my eyes were colder than ice. Master Meng should know that what belongs to Su Jinhua is not to be touched by others. Under his shocked gaze, I threw the bloodied earrings out the window. If someone else has touched them, I'd rather destroy them than have them offend my sight. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. And tell your little girl not to call me sister. Having this filth thrown in my face is disgusting enough. Did you expect me to cherish it? I leaned down and gripped the girl's chin. Next time you send a message to lure me here for a show, be a bit more direct. I could bring a few more people to catch your husband in the act. Then, in a voice only the two of us could hear, I whispered, "That little skill of his in bed. It seems only you are easy enough to please to enjoy it." I shoved her to the ground. In the face of Meng Ye's coldness, she didn't even dare to cry out loud, covering her mouth in fear of being heard. Meng Ye moved to come toward me, but under my murderous gaze, he didn't dare take a single step. Once something is touched by filth, it is filthy. In truth, the girl hadn't called me there. I had set this up to humiliate her using Meng Ye's own hand. But that wasn't the most important thing. The traitor is the one who deserves to die. Striking the weak but being gentle with the powerful was never the Su family way. Half an hour later, Meng Ye burst into my courtyard. The princess and the county mistress weren't at the tea house. You lied. I gave a casual, "Oh, did I see wrong? Who knows?" Meng Ye was shaking with rage. "Why must you push people like this? You shamed Yunyang and caused her to risk a miscarriage. Are you happy now?" I looked up in mock surprise. A mistress slapped in the street still wants face? Does Master Meng know who she's pregnant by? Who would want to be mocked alongside her? He looked flustered but tried to maintain a facade of righteousness. "I don't know what you're talking about. Regardless, you sent people to harass her and cause her distress. That was wrong." I couldn't help but sneer. "So when she climbs into my husband's lap and bites his ear, that's right? Fine. It's all my fault. I should have turned a blind eye. It was an eyesore anyway." Meng Ye frowned, looking at me with a chilling, savage gaze I had never seen before. There was no longer any guilt or gratitude in his eyes. A man has to socialize. It's inevitable he'll have interactions with the opposite sex. Why must you be so petty and lose your dignity like this? All these years, even though you couldn't bear a child, the Meng family never took in another woman. You should be grateful. Anyone else would have divorced you and married another long ago. His words were like ice. I dropped the act. "So, you want to be anyone else? Buying a mistress and trying to give that child the status of a legitimate son?" The anger I'd suppressed finally exploded into a cold roar. If it weren't for my family's crisis years ago, when I rode 1,000 miles to the border to beg my father and brothers for help, how would that child in her womb even exist? The Su family's life-saving grace has become the blade you use to stab me. You are an ungrateful, hypocritical actor. "No one asked you to do those things," he yelled back. "I've spent half my life repaying you. You shouldn't make the Meng family end with me." He stormed off toward his mother's courtyard. Lian Cheng appeared. "My lady, if you wish for a divorce, even though the general and the young masters are gone, the Su family will not let you suffer." I gave a mocking laugh and shook my head. A divorce? Everything the Meng family currently possesses was bought with the blood and merit of my father and brothers. If I am to leave, I must first strip them of their finery and beat them back into the lowly forms they once were. I drew a long, steady breath of relief. 10 days. Only 10 days remained before I would no longer have to endure this. But before that, I had to eliminate the Meng family's strategist. Without that old fox, Meng Mu, manipulating things behind the scenes, crushing a man like Meng Ye, who had never truly weathered a storm, would be as easy as stepping on an ant in the mud. When the mire clings to your feet, you must pull away in time to cut your losses. Those who drown in the past only end up pulling their current selves under. Who can guarantee that love will always remain smooth sailing? People trip while walking on solid ground, let alone when entrusting their entire life to another. I would never regret my past choices. After all, the 15-year-old Meng Ye truly, fervently loved the 15-year-old Su Jinhua, and that girl had simply followed the dictates of her heart at that age. What is the crime in loving someone? If a girl makes a mistake in her youth, does she deserve to be buried alive for it? No. A true mistake is knowing you are wrong, but choosing to remain wrong until the very end. I was drinking tea at a tavern with my best friend, the county princess. If you've suffered a grievance, don't just endure it, she told me firmly. At worst, just get a divorce. If the Su family can't support you, I will. I couldn't help but laugh. Divorce? Just to hand over the position of primary wife to someone else? As long as I hold this seat, no one else will find it easy to enter those doors. After all, the entire capital knows the debt of gratitude the Meng family owes me. Meng Ye once swore to the heavens that he would treat me with undivided devotion. If he wants a newcomer to enter, she had better have saved his life as I did. The princess shook her head. Unless someone saves the old madam's life, if they use filial piety to pressure you, Jinhua, they could force you to bow and let a newcomer in. Otherwise, any act of betrayal would be a scandal. Meng Ye losing his post would be the least of his worries. The entire Meng family would never be able to hold their heads up again. I smiled. Precisely. Behind the door, Wen Yunyang was listening to every word. Driven by this, Darshi and Meng Ye hatched a plan. They intended to wait for Meng Mu to leave the city for a pilgrimage to stage a life-saving heroics act. Usually, I would accompany the old madam everywhere, but this time, not only did they not require my presence, they even limited her entourage to 2 trusted maids to avoid any slips. Meng Ye watched his mother's carriage depart, a smile he couldn't hide touching his lips. I must thank Mother. Your monthly prayers have secured 10 years of peace and happiness for the Meng family. I smiled and said nothing. For 15 years, the protection of the Su family and my own tireless efforts had been reframed in Meng Ye's mouth as a blessing of the gods. Well then, let's see if those gods protect his mother today. I didn't bother praying. Instead, I went to the palace to spend the day with my cousin, consort Shu, drinking tea and admiring flowers. Because she was pregnant, she was extremely cautious and allowed no interruptions. Thus, it was only when I returned to the manor at dusk that the news reached me. The old madam had fallen into the water and was in critical condition. Even though I immediately brought an imperial physician back with me, it was too late to prevent the stroke. Meng Mu was left with a twisted mouth, a drooping eye, and half her body paralyzed. The physician sighed. The old madam had been taking high-grade herbal supplements, which have many contraindications, the most critical being that she must never catch a cold. She was submerged in freezing water and medical help was delayed. From now on, she must have absolute peace. Any great emotional shock will be fatal. After the physician left, I ignored Meng Ye's icy expression. Mother was only going to pray. How did she accidentally fall into the water? Meng Ye opened his mouth but couldn't answer. In their plan, bandits were supposed to block the path so Wen Yunyang could draw a blade and save the old madam. The debt of gratitude would be established, and I would have had to grit my teeth and welcome her in. But they hadn't expected the bandits to be real. Wen Yunyang, seeing the danger, had fled immediately. Meng Mu had only survived because her trusted maids fought desperately, jumping into the water to escape. If the old woman hadn't known how to swim, the Meng family would be wearing funeral white today. Burning with a rage he couldn't vent, Meng Ye used official business as an excuse to flee to the West City. That night, the sound of weeping and slaps echoed from the villa. The girl knelt, begging for mercy, before eventually shifting the blame to me. It's Su Jinhua. This was all her doing. If she hadn't lured me into using a life-saving act to enter the manor, the old madam wouldn't be hurt. Husband, believe me, I only ran to protect our child. She wants to kill the old madam and use your hand to kill us too. You mustn't fall for it. Meng Ye gripped his cup, the veins on his neck bulging. Good, Su Jinhua. I have underestimated you. If you are going to be heartless, don't blame me for being ruthless. I let out a sudden sneeze, being remembered by a dog. How unlucky. Fearing I would strike his precious girl, Meng Ye placed layers of guards around the West City villa. I simply shrugged. When someone else is willing to do the work, why should I dirty my own hands? 2 days left until the 10-day mark. I could wait, but Meng Ye couldn't. That evening, he claimed he had to study with the crown prince and left the manor. I sat by Meng Mu's bed, gripping her one unparalyzed leg. As she wept in pain, I smiled. Husband is busy day and night for the sake of the Meng family's future. Mother, you shouldn't be so clingy. She sobbed, watching helplessly as her son's figure vanished into the distance. Meng Shuifu, a daughter of a concubine whom I had brought back to the manor, stepped forward with a cold smile. She poured a bowl of scalding medicine into Meng Mu's mouth. The old woman's eyes pleaded for mercy, but Shuifu didn't flinch. I was trampled by my in-laws, treated like an animal, living a life worse than death, Shuifu whispered. You were the one who married me off into that good match just to clear a path for my brother. I begged for a divorce, but you wanted to drive me to my grave. Jinhua is right. Begging others is never as good as saving oneself. Once I finish taking care of you, she will grant me my freedom. So, be a good girl, mother. Don't make it hard for me and don't distract my brother. After all, his plan to kill someone cannot be delayed. Meng Mu was terrified, but she couldn't utter a single word. Shuifu and I looked at each other, seeing the same cold resolve in our eyes. That night, the courtyard was not quiet. After a cup of tea, I fainted. The maid who had served me for 10 years secretly dismissed the other servants and opened the back gate. But when she let a bald man into my room, she found the bed empty. She frantically threw back the covers, but I was already standing behind her, smiling. Looking for me? The man turned in shock, and I immediately knocked him unconscious with a swift strike to the neck. Suddenly, the room was flooded with light, revealing the maid's pale face. Madam, what are you doing? Why aren't you sleeping? Why did you call the whole courtyard here? Shuifu stepped out from the shadows. To catch a traitor, of course. You shouldn't have followed your sister's example. Disloyalty never ends well. And Jinhua isn't a defenseless concubine. You couldn't have schemed against her even in your dreams. The maid was gagged and dragged away before she could argue. When Meng Ye arrived, lantern in hand, ready to catch me in the act, he found me and Shuifu calmly playing chess under the lamp. I placed a piece, ending the game. Your strategy hasn't dulled, sister, Shuifu said with a respectful nod. Still seeing 5 steps ahead, I admit defeat. Meng Ye froze at the door, his affectionate eyes darting around the room. I smirked. Are you looking for Xiao Yu? I'm afraid she was caught in a tryst with a stranger. It broke the house rules, so she was dealt with according to family law. I clapped my hands and a blood-soaked corpse was carried out. Meng Ye recoiled, nearly retching. If I hadn't been prepared, that meat heap would have been me. For a noblewoman to lose her reputation, the chances of survival are slim. Even a divorce would be an impossible dream in this era. I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I carry a foul name that stains my ancestors? I've sent the man she was with to the magistrate, I added coldly. Since he broke into my courtyard, I must get to the bottom of this. Meng Ye's face transformed. No, you can't. Seeing my piercing gaze, he forced a smile. This is a private matter. We can't let it leak out. For the sake of your own reputation, we should stop the guards and deal with it quietly. You're right, husband, but you've always been better at dealing with officials. Perhaps you should go yourself? He clenched his fists and agreed through gritted teeth. With the Su family's influence behind him, Meng Ye found the bureaucracy a minefield. For the great grand preceptor to rescue a man from the dungeons was proving to be a nightmare. He was like an ant on a hot pan, terrified his filth would be exposed to the world. While he was occupied, I paid a visit to his little girl. She was brought before me in chains. She bit her lip and glared at me with hatred. You're the one who tied my child's prayer charm to a dog's neck, I said calmly. If your child dies young, would that be karma? Her face paled as she instinctively clutched her belly. The dog Meng Ye sent to the farm. You drowned it in a well, didn't you? She swallowed hard, trembling. I don't know what you're talking about. You broke into a private residence. I can report you to the officials. I nodded. You could. But if this house was bought by Meng Ye, it's a different story. Does an old woman have the right to reclaim the Meng family assets? She was stunned but remained stubborn. So, what if it's Meng family property? I am carrying Meng Ye's flesh and blood. Everything he owns belongs to my son. You're just a barren, jealous wife. By what right do you keep me out? I took a breath. When did I ever say I wouldn't let you in? Meng Ye is the one who never mentioned it. Her eyes filled with disbelief. Don't try to drive a wedge between us. He wouldn't lie to me. It's you. You won't let me in. I thought you were clever, but you're just a fool, I sighed. Think about it. You've ruined your reputation and paralyzed his mother. How could he possibly let you in? He wants to discard the mother and keep the child. He'll take your son and give him to a high-born woman to raise as her own. You? You aren't even qualified to be my opponent. This trip was a waste of my time. I stood up and walked away, followed by my servants, leaving her screaming in rage. Chapter 2. Driven to madness by her situation and desperate to enter the manor, the girl tried to hang herself with 3 feet of white silk. Meng Ye was frantic. He eventually sent the second madam of the Meng family to persuade me, to be generous, to turn a blind eye, and to let the girl in through a side door. I sat in front of the Buddha, sharpening a blade. How did my dog die? Meng Ye must avenge it to appease my anger. Only then will I consider our 15 years of marriage and turn a blind eye. The Meng women, who arrived with the arrogance of elders, were met with a bitter rebuff. They left, throwing back threats. Don't you regret this? Overnight, the Meng family boiled over. 1,000 days of filial piety go unnoticed, but one day of coldness is known to all. They branded me as unfilial, barren, and jealous. They threatened to strike my name from the family register if I didn't apologize. They wanted me to feel cornered so I would be forced to accept whatever they handed me, concubines, illegitimate children, anything. I never knew these people, who used to flatter me for the sake of the Su family's wealth and status, could be so shameless. They had forgotten my life-saving grace and now presumed to demand I kowtow to them. When the heart is empty, the lack of shame is truly revolting. But I didn't stop them. I fanned the flames. The accusations against my family reached the emperor's desk. I was surrounded by enemies with seemingly no way out. That was when Meng Ye appeared again, carrying medicine and wearing a fake, apologetic smile. Jinhua, stop this. It's bad for your reputation. The Su family's century-old honor shouldn't be ruined because of you. Give my son the status of a legitimate heir, and I can overlook everything. Oh? So a mistress gets promoted to an equal wife? Your family certainly works hard for their offspring. He started to argue, but I slapped him. A slap for his sheer lack of shame. You dare mention the Su family? Your honor and your oaths of fidelity rotted away in that West City villa long ago. The great grand preceptor was livid. Do you think the Su family is what it used to be? You've acted like my benefactor your whole life. Aren't you tired of it? I've spent my life repaying you. What more do you want? Do you really want me to have no heirs? A man having concubines is normal. If you were a man, you'd have a house full of them. You're trying to force me to be a saint. You're the one who is beyond saving. In his bloodshot eyes and trembling hands, I finally heard his true heart. Yun Yang is pregnant. Whether you agree or not, my child will be entered into the family records. I didn't argue. I reached out and gripped his throat, my fingers gently stroking his flushed cheek. He tried to flinch away, but I held his collar tight. So, Master Meng has forgotten the oath he swore in the palace? I don't think the people in the palace have forgotten. You broke a sacred vow. If you won't die by heaven's hand, how about by mine? Tell me, would the emperor agree? He stared at me, frozen in terror. You seem to have forgotten, Master. Su Jinhua has never been a kind person. My father and brothers died for the emperor. As long as I make one small request, His Majesty will grant it. The Meng family were once criminals. Everything you have is a gift from the Su family. And the Su family, we are warriors. None of us are living Buddhas. Meng Ye looked into my eyes and saw only cold, bottomless hatred. He hadn't expected me to be so resolute, willing to let the fish die and the net break, rather than take a single step back. I shoved him into a chair and forced a bowl of medicine into his hand. Don't force me to kill your girl and her child together. He fled, clutching the bowl of drugged tea. He didn't dare provoke me directly after that, but he began plotting a fatal blow, one that would ruin me in front of the imperial family. I handed him that opportunity on a silver platter. The county princess organized a poetry gathering inviting the wives of the censorate, the duke's manor, and the high officials. The scandal of the Meng manor had become the talk of the town. They gathered around the tea fire to offer me comfort, having also invited Meng Ye and the other officials. Before I could even finish brewing the tea, the door was burst open. Wen Yunyang threw herself at my feet, weeping. Madame, for the sake of the child, let me... She froze. The large room held only me. She had intended to make a scene in front of all the noble ladies to pressure me, but she had miscalculated. Under my mocking smile, she dropped the act and stood up. You bitch! What are you so proud of? You're 30 years old, withered and ugly, with one foot in the grave. You've committed so many evils, you're cursed. You killed your father and brothers, and you killed your own son. Your family is in decline. No one is backing you. When you die, you'll have no son to bury you. By what right do you keep me out? She screamed, her hairpin falling askew in her agitation. I stepped forward, smiling, and gripped her chin. I reached up and adjusted her hairpin. So, after 3 years as a mistress, you finally won a title? You even staged a rescue that left the old madam paralyzed, and yet you feel no remorse? She glared at me. So what? My husband believes me. He dotes on me. What can you do? A hen that doesn't lay eggs wants to monopolize the grand preceptor? By what right? I looked at Meng Ye, who was standing at the door with an icy face. Huo Ling stood beside him, looking away as if he hadn't seen a thing. You tell her, Meng Ye, by what right? Seeing him, Wen Yunyang's face changed instantly. Husband, she said she wanted to kill me and our baby. She said she'd rather die than let me in. I don't care about myself. As long as you love me, I can endure anything. But what about the baby? I don't want our son to be like me, an outcast. He needs a father and a home. Meng Ye looked at me deeply. Jinhua, you've worked hard for the family for years. Why must you strike at her wound? Wen Yunyang took the cue, turning to grab my sleeve. Sister, I was wrong. I apologize. I beg you. I yanked my arm away and she fell, her belly hitting the corner of the tea table. Meng Ye lunged forward like a madman to catch her. Oh, it hurts. Husband, it hurts so much. Sister didn't mean it. Don't blame her. She just lost her own child and doesn't like mine. Don't blame her. Ah, it hurts. Get a physician. Fast. Meng Ye was frantic, acting as if he were an emperor calling for the imperial physician. I didn't hide my derision. I always thought that even if you were a hypocrite, you at least had the soul of a gentleman. But you're even more revolting than the women fighting in the harem. For the sake of my son, for the sake of the Meng family line, I must divorce you. Huo Ling tried to stop him, but it was too late. Meng Ye had said the words, "The thing I regret most in this life is marrying you. If the Meng family has no heirs to Jinhua, you are the greatest sinner. Barren, jealous, ye unfilial. It is not too much to divorce you." Huo Ling hopped anxiously. Watch your words, watch your words. But I simply pulled out the Hua Li, consensual divorce papers I had already prepared. You aren't qualified to divorce me. A mutual separation is your best option. The child I lost, I'll consider that my karma, but I'll be waiting to see yours. If you think you can divorce me and seize the Su family assets, you've miscalculated. At that moment, Meng Ye finally realized my resolve. My cutting ties with the Meng family wasn't their choice. It was my calculated plan. The consequence of a Hua Li was that every asset belonging to the Su family would return to the Su manor. The Meng family would be left with nothing. His eyes darkened, his grip on Wen Yunyang tightening. Don't even dream of it. Only I can divorce you. There is no Hua Li. Your virtue is flawed. Letting you leave quietly is already an act of mercy. Immediately, the screens separating the room were pushed aside. The wives and officials who had been listening emerged. A mistress barging in to confront the primary wife, favoring a concubine over a wife before she's even entered the manor. Master Meng, you claim to be upright, yet you cannot distinguish right from wrong. The princess pulled me to her side. That creature insulted Jinhua the moment she walked in. She was disrespectful to the general and the young masters. If I don't punish her today, the world will think the imperial family is heartless and has forgotten the blood the Su family shed. Guards, take her away, V50 strokes, and throw her into the dungeons to await the emperor's judgment. I had been his wife for 15 years. How could I not know his schemes? He thought he was playing a winning hand, but he had walked right into the Hongmen banquet I had prepared. He had intended to use the officials to pressure me, but instead, he was the one being judged. Jinhua, what is it you want? For 15 years, the Meng family never mistreated you. Do you really want to end our line? The second madam arrived just in time. I looked at her. You've been listening for a long time. You heard how that creature insulted me. You let her turn black into white in front of your nephew. Why didn't you speak up then? Now, for the sake of your precious nephew, you finally have a voice?" Madame Weiqi, my maternal aunt, scoffed. How could we respect a family that rose to power on the back of a consort? If I had known the Meng family had such upstanding values, I would have advised the general not to kneel before the emperor for 3 days to save people like you. If they knew the white-eyed wolf they saved was insulting their daughter, they would return as ghosts to take your lives. With every word, Meng Ye's face grew paler. He couldn't even lift his head. He had forgotten the days his family spent kneeling at the Sioux gates in gratitude. He had forgotten the warmth we gave them in the dead of winter. Betrayal, bullying, and humiliation. This was the gratitude the Meng family gave me. Master Weiqi placed a confession on the table. Meng Ye turned ghost white. Plotting with a man to frame his own primary wife? Yet there wasn't a more shameless man in the entire empire. Such a virtue would surely corrupt the crown prince. Meng Ye stood there stunned, instinctively looking to me for help. I handed him the divorce papers. "Sign it. As for her," I pointed to the girl in his arms, "do with her as you wish." He looked up at me. His eyes, which used to light up when he saw me, which were red for a year when we lost our child, they were now filled with hesitation and regret. Middle-aged men are pragmatic. He wanted heirs and a harem, but he didn't want to lose a wife with a powerful background who could solve his problems. "Jinhua, is there no other way?" I shook my head. "Spilled water cannot be gathered. This is the most dignified way to end it. You should know that even if you can't bear to give up the Sioux family's power, you should understand my temperament." I shamed him publicly by pointing out his greed for my family's power. Even with no pride left, he chose the Hoa Li. His hand shook as he signed. The Sioux and Meng families were finished. What awaited the Meng family was a slow flaying. My dowry, the imperial rewards, everything I had built over the years, I took it all. The world praised my resilience while the Meng family's flawed virtue became a scandal. Their lavish life vanished. Even their children were kicked out of the capital's academies. The grand preceptor who tried to ruin his wife's reputation for a mistress was impeached, stripped of his rank, and flogged. Only then did they remember that his position was bought with the lives of my father and brothers. The Hmong women shrieked, "Ungrateful! You're trying to kill us." Without money or a livelihood, such a large family couldn't even afford porridge. Meng Ye didn't dare speak. He knew that when their house was first seized years ago, they had nothing. Everything they had since was a gift from me. I had never mentioned it, so they assumed it was theirs by right. I had kicked them back into the dirt and watched them live like dogs. Meng Ye harbored a flicker of hope. "It's fine. Yun Yang saved a lot of wealth in the West City. We won't be destitute. I don't believe the Meng family can't survive without Su Jinhua. We'll just welcome Yun Yang with an 8-man litter." But they didn't know they were walking into a trap. When they reached the West City villa with their meager belongings, they found it empty. The house had been sold for a pittance. When Yun Yang, in her desperation to fix her scars, had used potent drugs that cost her the baby and left her a shell of a woman. Seeing the Meng family in ruins, she took her wealth and fled the city at night. But her carriage was too lavish. It attracted bandits. Within 3 days, she was a corpse, broken by the brutal tortures of the bandit camp. "Well done, Lian Cheng." The stoic guard's face flushed at my praise. The next day, Sui Fu and I sat on the porch. "Sister, you're amazing." Amazing! It was just a mistress. Removing her was easy. I only waited this long to deliver the fatal blow to the Meng family. After all, the drug I put in Meng Ye's tea every day, combined with my special tea, has made him truly infertile. I told him, I lost my child for the Hmong family. I will never let him trample on my pain by having a house full of children. Word began to spread that the reason the Hmong family had no heirs was because Meng Ye had been injured years ago, not because of Su Jinhua. Meng Ye, unable to stand the slander, sought out the best physicians. The result was a thunderclap. He was indeed infertile. He collapsed, his entire life scheming revealed as a farce. He had blamed me for years, thinking his affection was a gift, only to have the arrow turn and pierce his own heart. The Hmong family, once praised for their noble character, were now reviled as villains. They splintered, taking what little money was left and fleeing to their ancestral home in Linyang. Meng Mu, hearing the news, coughed up blood and died. Meng Ye, once so proud, was now a broken man, living like a stray dog, hounded by mockery. He decided to head south to Linyang. Before he left, he knelt at the Sioux gates, begging for one last meeting. He held the shattered jade bracelets and the pearl earrings he had broken his leg to retrieve. He spoke of his debts and his regrets, using my past devotion to plead for a chance. He knew now what my 15 years of service meant. But when he had a more selfish choice, he had been blind. I didn't meet him. I don't forgive white-eyed wolves who only repent after the world has turned its back on them. I helped Sui Fu pack her bags. Are you really going to Jiangnan? Why not come to the north with me? She shook her head. You are fulfilling the general's wish. I am fulfilling my mother's. Our paths are different, so we should part with a smile. If you can't bear to see me go, I'll cry for you. I laughed and tucked the money I'd taken from the Hmong family into her bag. A woman's happiness should be built on her own fulfillment. May your life be as bright as silk. On the 5th day after Shui Fu left, her former husband, the Prince of Lin'an, came to me. If Sui Fu knows her mistake, tell her to apologize. I can overlook the past and bring her back as an equal wife. Otherwise, in the Meng family's current state, no one would even take her as a concubine. I took a spear and beat him until he was black and blue. What kind of rabid dog dares to bark at the Sioux gates? Shui Fu has signed the papers. She is free. Even if she hadn't, I would have gone to the emperor to demand her freedom. A lowlife like you seeing her again? In your next life, he screamed in disbelief as he was thrown out. How is it possible? She was just a concubine's daughter. Being a princess consort was the blessing of 8 lifetimes. You're lying. I want to see her. After the heavy gates slammed shut, I finished packing for the border where my father and brothers once served. Leon Cheng stood behind me, a faint smile in his eyes. I turned around. You look very pleased with yourself. He looked startled. You broke Meng Ye's limbs and threw him onto a merchant ship to spend the rest of his life begging for food in the southern lands. Did you think I didn't know? He bowed, silent. You did well. A step faster than me. For a man who thinks so highly of himself, the best revenge is to take everything he values. He wanted 1,000 descendants. I wanted him to have none. He wanted to rise in rank. I wanted him under my heel. Death would be too kind. Let him live in regret day and night for the rest of his miserable life. Lian Cheng looked at me with admiration. I teased him. But you were still too soft-hearted. You should have gouged out his eyes. A man that blind doesn't need them. I laughed and tossed a bundle to him. We leave tomorrow. We don't have time for this. End.